Among the many games to receive new trailers at the Game Awards 2022, one of the most intriguing was The Lords of the Fallen. Fans got to see the game up close, including a first look at gameplay, as well as a look at the world and its gritty locations. Judging by what's been shown, developer Hexwork is really bringing the souls into Souls-like with The Lords of the Fallen, with a setting and premise that could easily be pulled from a hypothetical From Software reveal trailer Dark Souls 4. The future of the Dark Souls series is uncertain. Many gamers see it as a trilogy that ended with the release of Dark Souls 3. And while From Software hasn't completely ruled out a Dark Souls 4, it certainly doesn't seem on the horizon anytime soon if it does. Produced one day, Armored Core 6 has just been announced and many believe that Elden Ring DLC news is imminent, while some are still clamoring for news of a long-awaited Bloodborne sequel. With From Software having their hands full for the foreseeable future, fans will be eyeing a slew of upcoming Souls-likes to fill the void of Dark Souls, and of all those in development, The Lords of the Fallen could be in the tone and style to match. Come closest. Dark Souls is often copied. Many consider the original Lords of the Fallen to be one of the very first true Souls-likes. Released in 2014, it bore a striking resemblance to Dark Souls, with interconnected maps, checkpoints that respawn enemies, and tactical, real-time, deliberate combat that used a stamina meter. The game received mixed reviews, with some finding the combat slow and tedious and others saying the narrative lacked engaging characters or memorable events. However, it had its fans and a sequel was soon announced later that year, but nothing more was heard of it until earlier this year when The Lords of the Fallen was released. This new trailer and gameplay footage almost confirms that the game will mimic From Software's themes and style much more closely this time around. The Japanese developer is the undisputed master of his craft, to the point that an entire subgenre has been named after his Dark Souls trilogy. But try as they might, no one designs monsters or worlds like Hidetaka Miyazaki and his team. With titles like Bloodborne and Elden Ring widely recognized as some of the greatest art designs in video game history, close scrutiny of this new trailer reveals several designs that are eerily similar to those seen in the Soulsborne games, a fact that becomes immediately apparent once the trailer's story begins, revealing a cold and bleak vocal speech that could be straight out of Dark Souls. From what appears to be a giant human-animal hybrid reminiscent of some of Bloodborne's later bosses, to a selection of fearsome humanoid enemies and a giant priest-style boss who uses a staff to perform dangerous-looking spell attacks, it certainly looks like Hexworks has absolutely nailed the tone and style it seems to be achieving. In fact, the game arguably looks even darker than From Software's catalog of titles, and some of the footage shown in the trailer could easily label the game an action horror game rather than an RPG. These two genres don't always go very well together, and Bloodborne probably follows this unusual line better than anyone, but if The Lords of the Fallen can strike the right balance, it can certainly strike gold. The Lords of the Fallen have ghosts to exorcise. The trailer confirms that this sequel really wants to stand tall and maybe even distance itself from the original 2014 game. Lords of the Fallen even removed the number from the title, somewhat confirming that it would be about a reboot rather than a direct sequel. The first game had a more fantasy and medieval setting, complete with a set called a protagonist and a fairly simple story. Two things players wouldn't normally find in a Souls-like title. No HUD is shown in the trailer and only limited combat is shown, making it difficult to determine if the action has been sped up this time around, with the unwieldy pace of combat. In the first game being a major criticism, it certainly looks action-packed, and the as yet unnamed protagonist is shown wielding various weapons, including an axe and shield, as well as a spike-shrouded sword, while battling various forces of darkness. The landscape appears to be vast and varied, with dark, cramped caves and tombs contrasting with vast open vistas, reminiscent of the imposing lands between Elden Ring. The first game followed the same semi-linear design as the Dark Souls trilogy, with a large game world connected via several maps and shortcuts, but not quite an open world. However, many other games are now going the open world route, and the unprecedented success of Game of the Year winner Elden Ring has proven that, when done correctly, the mix of Souls-like gameplay with an open world design really can be incredible. There's still no indication of a release date for The Lords of the Fallen, but a 2023 release certainly seems like a realistic possibility. Dark Souls fans generally tend to keep an eye out for upcoming Souls-likes, and considering most of them fall short of the ridiculously high standards of From Software's titles, they'd be forgiven for not getting too excited. Trailer footage. There are plenty of exciting Souls-likes to come in 2023, but given the obvious similarities, The Lords of the Fallen is definitely worth the attention of fans of the genre, many of whom will no doubt be waiting for more updates early in the new year. The Lords of the Fallen is currently in development for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X, S. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and support my channel.